Hi, this is Tech again, and today it's time for another motherboard roundup. This time I will do the socket 754, the sort of small socket for the Athlon 64s. Uh, Most notably, only single channel. That's the major difference when compared to 939. Anyways, let's start with Abit here. There is going to be two chipsets here basically, or yeah, two chipset families sort of, NFOS 3 and NFOS 4. NFOS 3 being the AGP chipset and NFOS 4 being the PCIe chipset. This is a AGP board. Now there is a bit of a problem, I would say, with these Abit NF8 boards, and that is that, well, the good results on HWBot are on a like a vanilla NF8. Uh, so uh, keep that in mind. There is a bunch of boards out there that are the version 2, or as they call it, NF8 V2. They have a little sticker here. I don't know if those are worse, but there are no good results with or submitted as the NF8 V2 currently. So maybe be a bit careful with that. Also, I have my list here again. So right now we are here, NF8. Basically, only the stock version seems to be based on NF3 Pro 250 gigabyte thing. All the other ones are the non-Pro versions. That might be a reason, but it might also not be, because there are some boards that seem to be decent with the regular chipset. So yeah, would be great if someone tried it, but Abit 754 boards seem super rare here, so it's unlikely to be me. Next one, Abit NV8. That is the nForce 4 based Abit board. Now there is confirmed very good results with this, and I don't doubt them like with some other boards where I don't necessarily doubt them, but I think the results make the boards look better than they are. I think this should be a very good board. nForce 4 based, PCIe. VRM looks good enough. I mean, 754 doesn't really have much there anyways. It's always just a three-phase pretty much. Uh, so I think that's about it for Abit. Uh, Unfortunately, again, ASRock kind of, well, doesn't have much of a lineup, but I basically put the board here which I would have the most faith in this whole lineup. This is the K8 Upgrade NF3. This is a regular nForce 3 250 based ASRock board with the strange CPU upgrade slot thing. Actually, that's AGP, that's the upgrade slot, I think. No, that's AGP. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying it, but if you want to play with the ASRock board, it's likely that this is the best ASRock board. So also kind of cool, there is an Alienware laptop with an nForce 4 SLI. Let's move on to ASUS. There we are. I would say this ASUS K8 N-E Deluxe here is probably your best bet at getting a decent AGP board besides besides DFI and Abit, and both of those are kind of hard to find. So this is probably the best sort of easy to find AGP 754 board. So recommendation from me. Now again, this is mostly based on scores and other ASUS boards of the era, but so far I haven't had one of these here. exact ones. So there is two versions here with the Enforce 3 Pro. Can get either one. There's very little difference here. Let's move on to Enforce 4 ASUS. Now, this is the one I don't have. I have the other one, the Deluxe. Now here there's quite the difference. One has the memory slots on top here, but going off of the Deluxe, I would think this should be decent. Again, a bit of a, how should I say, buy at your own risk more kind of deal, but I see a decent chance that this is going to be a good board. Let's move on to the Deluxe version. Now, this is the board I have. Now, not the exact one. This is a later revision with the blue slot. I have one with all three slots black. Personally, super impressed by this thing. I had absolutely no problem getting it to 400 FSB. Memory runs very well, it seems. Now, mine has a rather sketchy. Actually, let's find a better picture for this. That's why I took the one with the blue slots, I guess, because it had better resolution. Mine has a super sketchy volt mod up here for VMem. So I needed that to get over like 250 C2 with my WinBond sticks. But now BIOS recovery is surprisingly not as good as it's usually with ASUS for some reason. But it's still better than like all other boards I have except the DFI. So yeah, BIOS options are sort of, I mean, for a stock board, it's not that good. It has a maximum of 3 volts for the memory. It doesn't have chipset voltage at all, and also it has the strange ASUS quirk where basically your maximum CPU vCore is dependent on like the chip you're using, and some of the vCore options actually don't even work for some reason. So there's definitely room for improvement, but I would say for a non-DFI board, this is one of the best ones you can get. And you actually can get these. They don't seem to be that rare. There is like, they show up rather regularly here locally, and there is also always some on eBay. Though on eBay they want typical eBay prices as usual, so be warned. But yeah, this is so far my favorite board. I would recommend you on 754. Like obviously it's not the best board, but you can buy these. Same for basically yeah all of them here. These three should be good. I can only personally confirm this one. So let's move on. Now those are the big guys again. 754 is another generation where DFI basically dominated everything. So the first one is the AGP board. This is the LAN party. Amazing board. I have 2 of them. They are absolutely fantastic. But you also need a mod for more memory voltage. Keep that in mind. But yeah, it's hands down the best AGP board on 754. And the next one is hands down the best PCIe board on 754. The DFI Infinity NF4X. Now this is DFI's take on the NF4 chipset. Memory slots above the CPU. Average 3-phase VRM actually looks kind of ugly for a DFI, but that's just the Infinity deal. I guess those are technically more budget boards from DFI. So this is absolutely amazing board as well. Highly recommended. If you see one for a somewhat reasonable price, jump on it. So yeah, I actually said more about ASUS than I did about DFI, but basically DFI doesn't have any downsides, so can't really talk much about them. They are just, well, DFI. Back in their heyday, they were amazing. Anyways, move on. ECS, I unfortunately can't say anything I have kind of a soft spot for them for some reason. They usually make pretty garbage boards, but like there is no submissions here and I don't have any boards from them, so unfortunately nothing on ECS here. Now let's move on. EPoX. This is where another alternative for AGP comes from. This here, EPoX EP8KDA3J. Seems to be decent based on scores. Again, I don't have one as of yet. Actually, I found two EPoX boards last week, but that's another story, and those are not socket 754. Anyways, this is also a recommendation if you can find one. I'm not 100% sure. This is like a well-behaving board, but usually this should be. Let's move on to NF4. There is a NF4 lineup here. Now, this is one of them, the two NF4-4 boards here, the EPoX EP8NPAJ. Now, on these there are surprisingly no good scores, so again, a recommendation on your own risk, but I would expect them to be good. On the next one there is good scores. This is also the only like desktop board on 754 with the NForce 4 SLI chipset. I didn't want to do that. So yeah, it has a rather unusual layout and a unusual color scheme as well. But this is a definite recommendation. There is good scores on this and well EPoX as well. So should be decent. I think that finishes up EPoX. Yeah, Foxconn doesn't matter here. Actually, EVGA, quick word on them here before I forget them again. It seems like from the few submissions there is that this board actually might be somewhat decent, but I do not like can't say much about it. I can't even recommend it from other EVGA boards of the era because I have no idea how good they were or how bad. So if you find one, maybe buy it just for the fun of it, but definitely not a recommendation from me. Not because it's bad, just because I don't really have anything to go off in like recommending it or not recommending it. Foxconn doesn't matter. Fujitsu is OEM shit. Gigabyte. Now there is here this GAK8NS. We actually have it here. This board always looked decent, but like I have one of them and I have been fighting with it for the past couple years at this point. And this week I actually got around to volt modding it and it still doesn't like me. So there is decent scores on this, but I just can't reproduce them. Just not a chance. The board doesn't even post to 50 if I touch it. I have full volt mods on this thing. So everything and newest BIOS, and maybe that's the problem with Gigabyte. Sometimes the newest BIOSes are screwed up and you need some older BIOS that just works. So not a recommendation from me, but there is good scores. So basically, if you look at the scores and you think you have what it takes to make this thing clock, then go for it. But don't blame it on me if it like breaks BIOS or does Gigabyte things and doesn't even clock for that. Next up is another Gigabyte. This one has really, really good scores. This is the NF4 Gigabyte. So I definitely want to get this one. And maybe they didn't mess up BIOS as badly as with the NF3 board. So scores are really promising here. So this would be a sort of yeah, it would be a recommendation from me, but like the usual Gigabyte disclaimer. Because Gigabyte and BIOS, I don't know why they can't do it. Anyways, OEM stuff, OEM stuff, OEM stuff, MSI. Okay, so I don't have much experience with the NF3 boards, and the scores don't seem terrible, so But I have experience with the NF4 board from MSI, and it sort of makes me question if those are any good. This would be the NF3 MSI. Scores are not terrible, but not even on the level of the Gigabyte NF3 one. So keep that in mind. I don't think this is a good board, but there might be some way it works properly for you. So no recommendation from me, but well, if you want to prove me wrong, test it out. That's basically all of the boards I don't really recommend. They are not recommended because they are like inherently bad chipsets or something. They are not recommended because either I can't get them to clock or the scores currently look bad, which doesn't mean anything because basically before this week the ASUS scores didn't look very well either. So yeah. Anyways, Enforce 4 MSI board. This little cut down ATX, like ATX Slim crap here. I don't really have anything positive to say about this thing. I played around with it for a couple hours. Like I couldn't get this thing to post high FSB, which I think is because this thing tries to post at the maximum multi of the CPU no matter what you set in BIOS. This is my current working theory on this anyways. Besides that, they use some sort of MSI in-house brand chips for the voltage controllers. So I have no clue how to volt mod this thing. So you're limited to 2.85 volts on the memory. Actually, chipset voltage is decent for some reason. It goes to 1.85 and whatever it likes to give you on CPU. I think the maximum is 1.55, but it might be another one of those where it depends on the CPU you insert. Though I kind of doubt it because I'm pretty sure they just connected the VID pins on the voltage controller up here and called it a day. Also two-phase versus the other boards, which are basically all three-phase. Now the only upside on this thing is that it seems to be available like easily and like really cheap. But I still wouldn't buy it because from my experience, actually I was able to push FSB like almost 350 on it. Okay, but like not being able to post the settings you want, and I'm pretty sure memory is not good on that thing either because well you're limited to in the voltage unless you're going to basically run a like a OZ booster or something on the memory, or just slap a ample power card on there. But like you can mod most boards to the point where they will clock, but this one takes probably unjustified amount of effort. So no recommendation from me on the MSI NF4. Let's move on. There is nothing here. Nothing. Shuttle and Soltec. Well, I couldn't find a picture of this board on the internet, so that's kind of a problem. I would be curious what it does, but I can't recommend it necessarily. So I think we are at the end of the list. So yeah, my recommendations on like top boards on this socket are the two DFIs, obviously. Again, it's with 939 one of the two sockets I would say where you actually sort of have to get a DFI if you want the best board. On everything else there is alternatives. On this, I was really impressed by not this one, by the ASUS. So this might be an alternative, not sure yet, but this definitely gets my sort of budget pick, the K8N4-E Deluxe from ASUS. Because those are actually sort of available and, well, they clock decently enough. They don't have any strange quirks where you can't post above 250. I could post this board all the way up to like 400, but it just wouldn't boot anymore at 400, which might be because of my CPU or it just not having volt mod on the chipset. So yeah, my budget recommendation goes to the ASUS. Anyways, I think that's about it for 754, not 775, as much as I like 775. That's it for 754, and I hope this was helpful. Bye.